What's going on, guys? Hopefully you had a happy Thanksgiving, spending valuable time with family, taking a break from staring at Bitcoin, staring at the market. We are starting this week in the red. We're going to look at Bitcoin here in a second, but we do have some news from MicroStrategy. So a few days ago, we had this cryptic tweet. Michael Saylor says, what if we start adding green dots? These orange dots are precursors to a Bitcoin buy. Then they announced Monday that they did acquire Bitcoin. Well, what was this green dot about? Some people thought maybe they're going to sell their Bitcoin. This is what a green dot means. An orange meant buy, maybe green means sell for cash. That's not the case. They acquired 130 Bitcoin for 11 million, very small Bitcoin buy, but a significant milestone, a psychological number. They reached 650,000 Bitcoin held, an average price of 74,436. People also speculate that if Bitcoin goes under their average, they're going to get liquidated or something. I guess those people forgot about 2022, where we went all the way down to $15,000. MicroStrategy's average was nowhere near $15,000. But what was this green dot? What did it signify? Well, MicroStrategy, or strategy as some people call it, I still call it MicroStrategy, they announced the formation of a $1.44 billion USD reserve. So I guess green means cash, building up a cash position, preparing for any more rough times, pushing aside the rumors that MicroStrategy is in a tough spot, low on cash. They're going to have to sell their Bitcoin. Well, this announcement did not invoke much confidence. MicroStrategy is down roughly 10% as of this upload. A lot of the Bitcoin miners are selling off. Bitcoin's down. So that's obviously pushing it down as well. But this announcement possibly brought a little more fear, worries that, oh, they're preparing for more pain for Bitcoin. They're preparing some cash. Maybe Bitcoin goes lower. This is why they're doing this. MSTR is sitting at $160. It's continuing to create new recent lows. If you have an iron stomach, do I think this is a buy? I do think so. We're likely to see lower prices. It's a falling knife. If you're seeing new recent lows, you're likely to see more new recent lows. It'd be nice to see it start to try to establish some sort of floor, and you might want to wait until that point. If you're trying to buy a heavily oversold stock, a fearful stock, I do think MicroStrategy is looking very attractive. And when we were back here in the 200s, people were like, it's unlikely we're going this low. Here we are. We could even go lower. We could come down to this 130 area. This range, as I said in a video a few videos back, this, in my opinion, is a great time to buy MicroStrategy in this range. We have previous levels that will probably turn out to be support. We have a very, very oversold chart. What you want to start to look for is, do we see lower lows on MicroStrategy while the RSI starts picking up, giving us a possible bullish divergence, a sign that we may be turning around, strength coming back while the market is still in a panic, so to speak. I will point out to you guys that on the weekly, we haven't seen MicroStrategy this oversold since 2022. What was 2022? That was the bear market. That was the lows. And you'll see that last time we were at this level of oversold, it was May 2022. It marked a fantastic time to buy MicroStrategy. At what price? At $14. $14. Another thing to note here, on the weekly, look at us approaching this 200 MA. This is another area, this $130 area. If we come down and get a bounce on the 200 MA, we're already heavily oversold. We start seeing a divergence, seeing the RSI pick up while the price hits this 200 MA. That could give us some confluence. A bullish divergence while we're getting a test of an important major moving average. Last time we were at this type of oversold level, we did see a massive bounce, a huge recovery. And in hindsight, buying these oversold levels are great opportunities to buy, just as it's a great opportunity to trim when you see a very overbought weekly RSI. Now, if you want to be extremely patient, go to the monthly. We can go lower. We've seen the RSI lower on the monthly, although literally never oversold. We've never seen the monthly on MSTR oversold. There's a first for everything, of course. But you know, there's another thing on the monthly, the 50 MA on the monthly, right around that same area the 200 MA is, right around this 135 area. There's a very good chance that we get a test of this area, and it would be, in my opinion, a fantastic time to add some MicroStrategy. But let me know, are you guys adding now? Are you waiting to see kind of things bottom out? Seeing some floors trying to be established rather than these falling knives lately? Or do you see MicroStrategy as too good of a deal to pass up? Similarly, when it was $14 in 2022. One thing I want to mention that's very interesting still, we've been talking about this, that Bitcoin exchange balance is continuing to drop, even though price is dropping. You typically don't really see that much. Typically, when you see price dramatically rise, you see this kind of an accelerated drop in supply. This is the Bitcoin exchange balance. This is Bitcoin balance on exchanges. And in the beginning of 2024, we had 3 million Bitcoin on exchanges. And in less than a year, we now have 2 million. We have 1 million Bitcoin taken off of exchanges in only a year. One thing we have coming up that we know of is the 2028 halving. This is when Bitcoin coming into the market gets cut in half. We're going to continue to see Bitcoin being taken off of exchanges, Bitcoin becoming more and more scarce. When you see Bitcoin this oversold, when you see Bitcoin with this much fear, it tends to be a great opportunity to buy, to add to your Bitcoin position, take advantage of the pain. The cheaper Bitcoin is, the more you can accumulate. And while Peter Schiff says things like this is not even a real asset, I think this is one of the most valuable assets because of its inherent scarcity. Most of the Bitcoin that will ever be produced, the vast majority is already produced and in circulation. We are going to be fighting for the last few percent over the next 100 or more years. And crypto fear and greed index, I gotta show you guys this. You know, at these levels, typically it's a great opportunity. We did get a little bounce here recently on the fear and greed index. We are now to 24, still extreme fear. Not as fearful as we were last week, but you know, it tends to be a great opportunity. Last time we saw crypto at this fear level was February of 2025, which was a low point before we started our, March, April rally. These were low points. Last time we saw fear and greed at this level was 2022, the bottom of the bear market. These tend to be great buying opportunities, and in hindsight, I think they will be. Now, can we come back down and retest this 10 level of support and maybe even go lower for a brief period? It's possible, but be ready to take advantage. One thing you want to watch for Bitcoin, if we don't hold this level, it looks like we're starting to break under it again. This on the weekly, you'll see that we didn't really break it. It was just kind of a wick down. We wicked down, but if we see us continue to break down this level, we're going to retest this 80,005. If we don't hold 80,005, we're likely to come test this roughly 75,000 in my opinion, which was a previous level of resistance that flipped to a support. You saw a big reaction on the breakout, flipped to a support, we held it, and we got another big run. I think there's a good chance, if we don't hold this low, we're likely to test it, but we got to hold this 80,500 area. If we don't hold that, I think it's a good chance we test 75,000, which would, in my opinion, be a fantastic time to add. Looking at Bitcoin on the weekly, we're not at those oversold levels like the bear markets. Not there yet, but we are approaching it. We haven't seen a Bitcoin at this level on the RSI since it was down at this level. It went lower, but we are down at this level. Haven't been here since January of 2023 on our recovery, once we bottomed out here. So maybe we see Bitcoin come down to 85, test this oversold area on the RSI. Sometimes you get a bounce right at oversold like we saw in the 2017. After the 2017 peak, you saw a bounce right at the low at the 200 MA on the weekly too. Very interesting. Maybe we come down to the 200 MA on the weekly here, $56,000 area. One thing to think about too is from a cycle standpoint, if this is going to be an early bear market, that means we'll likely recover earlier as well. Typically what you see is Bitcoin tops out in either November or December on its peak year, 2013, 2017, 2021, 2025. We seem to have topped out early in October. That has never happened in any cycle. You always see the top in either basically November or December, and you always see it bottom out typically in the following year around November, December. It takes about a full year to get through the bear market. So we either recover and soon and break to new all-time highs, or we continue in this bear market. If we see a typical year-long length of a bear market, we're likely to bottom out in October of 2026. Maybe it's sooner. Maybe we don't have an extended bear market. One thing you could also consider is Bitcoin broke its previous all-time high, that's $69,000. It broke it earlier than it typically would have in previous cycles. Maybe that's why things are coming to an end early. Maybe this is a pullback and we see a new run to all-time highs in 2026. I think whatever we see, you need to be flexible. You need to either be ready to take some profits. If we do run and test new all-time highs and break out, it'll be a good time to take some profits and trim. If we do see some new lower lows, if we see a test of our 2021 peak, this 69,000 area, we always typically test our previous market peak in the following bear market. Here's an example. In 2017, we topped out at 19,000. In 2021, we came down, tested this 19,000 area. We came down to 15,000 and we broke out. We went about $5,000 down from 19,000. If we see roughly $6,000 down from 69K, we're going to 65. How much more pain do we have from here? I mean, you're talking about another roughly 25% down, and that's it. That's it for the pullback. It's always possible we kind of get a little recovery, dead cat bounce, and then we sell off. Takes a couple of months. We get through all the way to next spring, finally bottom out maybe, or maybe we do bottom out in October. You got to realize that Bitcoin, the trend is our friend until it's not. And so far it does seem like the typical cycle is kind of breaking from the norm. Although in my opinion, we will always see kind of a run up around the halving. So 2028, we're going to see a run up in anticipation of the next halving, which we always see, You know, following the halving, the 2024 March halving, we topped out and pulled back. We saw a massive run, about a year-long run. And then you always get that kind of lull in between the halvings where there's not as much excitement. We're waiting to get through to the point of the next halving. You see a pullback, you see market fear, something breaks. In the last cycle, it was FTX. In this cycle, who knows? Maybe the spot Bitcoin ETFs contribute to some selling and more fear. Maybe it's massive liquidations. Maybe there's companies that are gonna go under because they bet too heavily on Bitcoin. Maybe we don't have something actually break this cycle and we see a little correction and we go higher. But let me know what you guys think. Bitcoin is very hard to predict, and following the cycle, you know, it kind of gave us a crutch or a way to kind of know what to expect from Bitcoin. And seeing that Bitcoin seems to be breaking from its typical cycle leads me to think that we may actually see new higher highs in 2026. But let me know what you guys think about that. Are we going to see new higher highs in 2026? A break of the all-time high of 126,000 in 2026? Or are we going to have like an extended bear market? And I'll leave this down below for you guys, but it's basically things to expect this week. PCE, we have a speech from Powell today in the evening apparently, and this is going to foreshadow the December 10 rate cut, or lack of it. Right now, it's very likely we get a rate cut. We're like an 86% probability. We also have PCE on Friday. This will be very important to see. What do we get? Do we get a drop in PCE? Do we get a rise? That'll affect the probability of cuts. But you know, long story short with Bitcoin, typically times like these, you want to take advantage. The fact that we're already this oversold on certain time frames has me feeling like we're at least due for a bounce, if not a full recovery. People are counting out Bitcoin running to new all-time highs in the next couple of months. People are thinking we're already entering the bear market. It's over. Party's done. And usually that sentiment can change very quickly. Just remember, don't get caught up in the hype. Don't get caught up in the fear. It always tends to be a great opportunity to buy when things are so oversold and so fearful. And it tends to be a great time to trim or sell when things are overbought and very full of hype. But it's very hard to do it at the time because you get caught up in everyone's emotions. When things are running and there's excitement, you've got people saying Bitcoin's going to 200, 250,000. But anyways, guys, thanks as always for watching. Hopefully you had a good Thanksgiving, and I will see you tomorrow.